Hey everyone, Spikes, I guess. So there was this Reddit post here in Spikes about how do you document, or what do you document while tuning your decks? And I posted this response, and it goes to my collection of data. Those of you familiar with Lantern or the Lantern subreddit or any of that, you might have seen this before. But this is all of my data that I've been collecting for Lantern since I started recording back in about April of 15. And so here's all of my data. I keep track of whether there's pre-board or post-board, what I'm playing against, if I'm on the play or draw, if I've won or lost. I also keep track if I've won or lost a match, and I automatically calculate. So when I do match win losses, I do not count if an opponent quits in game one. That way, it doesn't skew the match win loss data. I only count it if one of the players won 2 games out of the 3. I'll put the date and the pilot, and uh, and then I keep track of all the cards in the opening hand and additional random data that I like to do. For example, how many cards are in the opener for mulligan data, lands in the opener, whether I count opal or mox opal or not, all sorts of data that I keep track of. And what that does is I put it into, or there's a lot of things like, for example, it gives me the overall match win percentage against various decks, and I check to make sure it automatically does only recent ones as well, because the metagame does change and decks do change. Um, and it automatically puts it into unweighted data, so it's data that's not weighted for small sample sizes. That's why like some of these, like Gelatinous Crane, shows a great correlation with win percentage in the opening hand when you have one of them. But I like the weighted data for small sample size. That way I know I'm not getting skewed data. And there I have 3 methods for weighing the data and with no exponent. So if I go over into this weight column here, you see I have this algorithm. Now there's 3 methods I can do with no exponent in this algorithm, or I can use a squared function, so I square that algorithm, or I use a cubed function. And the whole purpose of that is to try to know whether or not some people like no exponent, squared or cubed, depending on how much they want to account for sample size. Usually it doesn't matter a whole lot. So for example, you'll notice Ensnaring Bridge and Lantern correlates to a good win percentage when it's in the opening hand, no matter what here. And it's, Glimmer Void, Lantern. So you'll see that kind of follows in all of them, but there's small changes after that. Keeps track of how each individual pilot does against certain decks. And yeah, so it does a lot for me. And it helps me figure out what cards I want to keep in the deck. I prefer the squared weight function, by the way. What cards I want in the deck, and then what to watch out for, like what cards are the bottom performers and whatnot. And then try to figure out why and tweak the deck accordingly. That's where a lot of the way I've been building the deck has been coming from, and it's working extremely well, as you can tell from my overall match win percentage, which is pretty good. That's overall. Then if I only count recent, it's still pretty good. So for anybody else though who also wants to uh, keep track of their data and whatnot, I made a template. And it's the same thing. All you have to do is put in your data, your opening hand data. If it's pre-board or post-board, what you're playing against, all that stuff, who's playing it. And then you have to put in your own individual cards. For example, if you're playing Affinity, you put in, I don't know, Arcbound Ravager or Master of Therium and so on in these. Okay? And then, let's see, I already have it set up, so it'll automatically track the cards in opener, and if it's a recent game, for as the meta evolves. But yeah, and it keeps track of play, let's see, there we go. Whether a win percentage is when on the play versus on the draw to help out there. It takes a while to get some reliable data. You have to get good sample sizes, but so anyways, a lot of this is already set up, but there is some work you have to do to, get it set up nicely. You have to, you're going to have to enter in the names of cards here and link them correctly. So for example, on this one right here, if I go to, let's see, the squared weight function, this right here, I have it linked to the ensnaring bridge tab pivot table. And I have ensnaring bridge, it goes to a pivot table that I created, and then a certain square. So for example, what you do there, the way you create these pivot tables, and some of you might already know this, but so let's see. It's a good data point. I don't know, pick Internet Explorer, or actually, I will do, let's see if I remember correctly. Pivot table, I'll go right here under data. It'll create a new pivot table. So it's basically a new tab, pivot table 104. I have 103 of them so far, I guess. Or something like that. It's loading up. It's going to take a little bit here. Bear with me. Ready, go. 1, 2, 3, go. Okay, so what I can do here, for the rows, I can say, whatever I want it to be. I don't know, let's say word of invention. For the columns, if it's a win or a loss. And for values, you just put in the number of games. And games, I have them all set to 1. So it's updating it real quick. Now I already have a WER pivot table, but I'm showing you how to start one from scratch. Come on, computer. There we go. So it shows with 0 in the opening hand, number of wins, or number of losses, number of wins, and total. And then, with 1 in hand and then 2 in hand. Okay. So what I can do with this is I will go to the, where's it at? Squared weight function for a word of invention. I will link that right there. So I'll just, I'll do equals, whatever that pivot table thing was. That's 0 in opening hand. So I'll go pivot table 104. 0 in opening hand. What was it? Oh, total, right? I think it was. Oh, I forget. I'm getting old. Word table D2. Let's get there real quick. Actually, this will be the quickest way. Word table D2. Oh, wins with none in the opening hand. I'm sorry. And it'll automatically pull from there. And then, I add this little thing here, but it also calculates automatically. But anyways, you have to create the hard part is you have to create a pivot table for each individual card as you create it in that main data tab. So, under opening hand data here, you do the create pivot table, right? And then you enter in your data. And then on your data trends, you just link that data accordingly. And I already have these filled in for anyone. They don't have to fill in all these divide by zeros and the weight and whatnot. I already entered in all those algorithms and whatnot. So all you have to do is put the card, link the correct cells from the pivot table for each one of these, and it'll automatically get all of your data for you for correlating win percentages. So I know it probably seemed really confusing as I went through this or whatever. You're smart, you probably followed and all that. I'm probably just not very good at explaining it. But I'm going to link this in this spikes post that I'm making. And if anybody needs any help whatsoever, I would love to help out. And like once one is made for Affinity, basically, then all Affinity players can use it. They can even, like, the Affinity subreddit could enter in all their data. Or for, Burn or Death Shadow or whatever. Once one is made, that can be a template for everybody else who's also playing that deck. If they want to try specific different cards, then sure, they just add it, create a new pivot table, and they're good to go. They just keep on going. So again, if anybody needs help, feel free to contact me. I'm usually in the MTG Salvation IRC channel. Yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope this helps somebody.